Hello, and welcome to the last video for Chapter 7. Excuse me. We're going to start on page 718, and the discussion here is on listed property. All right, then we're going to go into depreciation of automobiles and finish up the chapter with a little discussion on intangibles. Okay, on page 718. Okay, they talk about listed property. Now, if you go back to page 716 and you look at page 2 of Form 4562, all right, you'll see that listed property is noted in Part 5 of Form 4562. So what is listed property? Well, listed property is a term that is used for assets that give themselves up basically as personal use type property. Okay, now I don't want to get that term confused with personal property. All right, remember that assets are either defined as Section 1245 property, which is personal property, or Section 1250/Section 1231 property, otherwise known as real estate. Okay, so listed property is property that has items in it that people would use the most for personal use. Things such as automobiles, computers, cell phones, all right, things like that. Things that you would have a definite a computation as far as what is the percent of business use. Okay, all right, so that is listed property. Now, very, very important. What is a personal automobile or a passenger automobile? Okay, in order to define what a passenger automobile is, you generally would have to open the front door of the vehicle and look at the plate that is on the door. And what you're looking for is the gross vehicle weight of the vehicle. It doesn't matter whether it's a car or an SUV or a light-duty truck, like that. It goes by the weight, and the weight is 6,000 gross vehicle pounds. In other words, the weight of the vehicle without any body or any cargo in it. Okay, most passenger automobiles would definitely weigh less than 6,000 pounds, as would most light-duty trucks and usually crossovers. Now, there could be some heavy SUVs like a Suburban or an Escalade, and a lot of the bigger trucks would weigh more than 6,000 pounds. So they are not considered to be listed property. So why is this important? Well, number one, okay, the important paragraph in this section is the second paragraph from the bottom of page 718, and it says, if listed property is used 50% or less in a qualified business, any depreciation has to be used using straight line. All right, you do not use the modified accelerated cost recovery system. You just use straight line. Okay, and the special election to expense and bonus depreciation are not allowed. This is, of course, assuming that the percent of business use falls below 50%. Now, if the percent of business use is greater than 50%, then it doesn't matter if it's listed property or non-listed property. All right. Okay. It's just that this type of property tends to lend itself to less than 50% business use. All right. I do not question my clients as far as the percent of use. If they tell me they bought a laptop, all right, I will ask them, all right, what is the percent of use? If they tell me 75%, I put 75. If they tell me 100, I put 100. I am not going to question that. That is, they would have to prove that at audit if that happened. All I want to know is what is the percent of business use, all right, so that I can make the depreciation deduction. Okay, so, and keep in mind there will be some questions on the quiz and on the test where the percent of business use will probably not be 100%. All right, so please pay close attention to the problems at the back of Chapter 7 and the solutions to those problems, which have been posted on Ivy Learn since day one. All right, to calculate that kind of problem. Okay. All right. So moving on, let's go to bottom of page 719 and the top of page 720. Okay. All right. The next thing that we look at is the depreciation of passenger automobiles. Now this is where it gets a little unusual. Okay. A passenger automobile is 5-year property. 5-year property. Okay. So using makers, you would depreciate this asset over 6 years, assuming a half-year convention. Except that this type of 5-year asset will probably never get depreciated over 5 years. Okay, there's a reason for this. If you look at the top of page 720, all right, you notice that there is a depreciation limitation on passenger automobiles. And again, this would be anything less than 6,000 pounds gross vehicle weight. All right, that depreciation limitation is $3,160 in the first year. Now the amount at the top of page 720 says $11,160, but you got to look at the asterisk. Along with that is bonus depreciation of $8,000 that you could take. So if you take the $11,160 minus the $8,000, you get a first year non-bonus depreciation limitation of $3,160. Okay, all right. The depreciation in year 2, the maximum is $5,100. Year 3, $3,050, and year 4 and subsequent years, $1,875. So if you're trying to depreciate a Cadillac Escalade that doesn't weigh more than 6,000 pounds, it's going to take you a while to depreciate this vehicle. Okay, it'll probably be rusted out before you ever get a chance to depreciate the whole thing. Okay, so you know, this is to make it a level playing field between, you know, the small business person who can't afford a luxury automobile, you know, and those people that can. All right, you know, and so that's what this kind of depreciation is for. So you would look at the examples at the bottom of page 720, all right, and the top of page 721 to give you some ideas on how to depreciate a passenger automobile. Okay, all right. It does note there though that if the vehicle does weigh more than 6,000 pounds, okay, these limitations do not apply to that kind of a vehicle. All right. Finally, we're going to wrap up the chapter on page 722 and 723 with something called Section 197 expensing. Okay. Now I said 197, not 179. A lot of times people get those numbers mixed up. Section 197 applies to the amortization of intangibles. All right. Now, for example, the CPA that I mentored under way back in the late 1980s, he eventually went out of business and sold me his business. All right. I got a couple of desks from him. I got a couple filing cabinets from him, but the main thing I wanted from him was his client list. All right, so his client list is an intangible. All right, so how you would figure that is you would take the total, for example, I would take the total price that I paid him for his business. I would subtract the fair market value of those desks and those filing cabinets, okay, and whatever was left over would have been what I paid him for his client list. Then I took that amount and I divided it evenly over 15 years. All right, so Section 197 intangibles are divided over a 15-year life. All right, or 180 months, and it is divided evenly using straight line amortization. All right, remember it's called amortization, not depreciation. Okay, all right, that ends this video for Chapter 7 and all videos for Chapter 7.